Hey, rookies, and welcome back to the Rookie Farmer Podcast. This is the home of all things honest, raw, and inspiring in the world of market gardening and small scale agriculture. If you are new here, my name is Alec. I'm your host, and I'm also the grower at Crop Culture Farm here in New Bern, Georgia. And congratulations, everybody. Give yourself a round of applause, pat yourself on the back. We made it. We survived our first year of the podcast. We've gone all the way January to December, and now we are back. Season 2 of the Rookie Farmer podcast, and a whole nother year of 2026 ahead of us, full of amazing episodes, amazing guests, and fantastic, inspiring conversations that I know we are going to get into. And I just want to say here at the top, thank you guys so much for all your support, the people who reach out with feedback and encouragement and telling me how much they love the show. Those of you guys who have continued to reach out about doing episodes, none of this would be possible without everybody else. And as always, we give them a thank at the end of the episode, but right up here at the top, just a huge thank you to Diego and everyone at Modern Grower who makes this show possible. I'm beyond grateful that I can say I have a podcast and we've been doing it for a year and we're going into another year of episodes. I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to do this. This has always been a dream of mine. And if it wasn't for Diego giving me a shot and making this possible, none of this would be a reality. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. But anyways, in this episode, in the season premiere of the 2026 season of the Rookie Farmer podcast, we sit down with Jill Duncan of Loving Roots Urban Farm. She is a market gardener just outside of St. Louis, Missouri. And she has it dialed in, y'all. She is doing about a third of an acre on her own property, pumping out all of the high profitability, fast turnover crops that we all know and love as market gardeners. But the amazing thing about Jill is she also has an enormous heart for her community and for her customers and the people that she interacts with through the farm and because of the farm. And we get into all that in this episode. We talk about the challenges and the wins and the struggles of now completing her first full season on her new property. She had been renting a piece of property for about 5 years, and now she is farming on her own land. And we also get into the importance of building that community, building relationships with your customer, and letting that be the force that drives growth in your business. And you stick around to the end, we get a little summer lettuce masterclass from Jill. So without further ado, let's sit down and enjoy this episode with Jill Duncan. Stay tuned. Jill, thank you so much for sitting down on this nice chilly evening and giving us a little bit of time to just chat about your season and everything that's going on. But for people who aren't familiar with you, maybe they haven't heard you on other podcasts, kind of just tell the world out there who you are and what you got going on.
Yeah, I'd love to. The name of my farm is Loving Roots Urban Farm. I was located in the city of St. Louis for 5 years, really urban, and just this past year, purchased property with my partner, and so we're actually east of the city now. We're in Maryville, Illinois, about 20 minutes east of the city, much more suburban. And actually, our property, once you're on it, it looks like you're in the country. So it's really great. It's tucked away. It's a little gem. I focus on high value crops, so like high quality salad mixes, head lettuces, cooking greens, baby root vegetables, cherry tomatoes. Those are kind of my main items. And I have an online store, so I sell retail online, and I also sell to a list of restaurants in the St. Louis area and a couple of shops as well. I'm no-till, woman-run, and very small scale, and I don't have any employees, so it's just me.
Gotcha. Yeah. Welcome to the solopreneur, solo farmer. Yeah, we're talking offline about the difference between working with a podcast and working in silence. I guess, I mean, before we get into the meat of it, like, how do you enjoy that?
Mhm.
Do you wish you had people there with you? Or do you enjoy sort of the quiet, sort of like isolated time to just be alone, just kind of you and nature, you and the plants?
Yeah. I like a mix. I generally like to work by myself. I have a very, like, planning type of brain, so I'm, like, always planning, like, how long things are gonna take me and just scheduling my day, but I also am a people person, so I have volunteers that come and help on the farm every week. So I get a mix of community and solo time, and since I own and run the farm, I choose when I want people to come and when I don't, so I like to work solo in nature and we have a lot of birds and wildlife, so that's kind of my office.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I love that. I know for me, before we started crop culture, I had worked at you know, I'd say a medium-sized organic farm,
mm,
probably like 20 acres with like a full crew and all that. So I was
uh,
totally accustomed to this far more collaborative
yeah,
environment where, the owner, we could throw out suggestions and sort of he would
yeah,
give us a little bit of autonomy, but then also, we'd come together in the morning, at lunch, at the end of the
yeah.
day. And all of a sudden I found myself just just utterly alone. And,
Yeah,
it's definitely a big transition, and now 2 years in, it's getting better. I'm learning to appreciate it more, but,
yeah,
in the age
yeah,
of social media and constant attention, it can be tough to find that center of just, like, peace and solace and
right.
just be out there and be a part of all that.
Yeah, I when my farm was located in the city for 5 years, I was renting land from, Earth Dance Organic Farm School, which is like a 14-acre organic farm in the city, and so I always had a lot of community, and I could go to the farm managers on that farm and say, "Hey, have you ever seen this, crop damage, or what do you think about the weather?" And we would, like, work through things together, and so that was really nice having a community, but, honestly, I really love working solo. I think it would have been hard maybe my first few years to do that. Like, it really helped me to have people to bounce ideas off of and get help and things like that. But now I'm feeling pretty good on my own.
Yeah, and, that's actually a perfect transition to getting into what it's been like now that you've sort of finished your first season.
Yeah.
Are you officially, like, done now, or are you still
No.
do you still have stuff in the ground? You're still going?
Yeah, I'm still going. We have about 8 inches of snow outside right now, but I have a 110-foot caterpillar tunnel. So I have that just chock full of greens and selling spinach and kale and lettuce and things like that still, and I'm gonna push that as long as I can. I've got 3 layers of row cover on the beds right now, so just hoping that things are gonna keep going through this, I think that's gonna be in the teens tonight. Yeah, so I'm still going, but the winter really slows down. This is my first winter actually growing in the winter, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'd say just for a little bit of context for anybody that's listening,
Mm,
if you wanna get a little bit more detail into Jill's transition from her rented piece of property that she was on, you were on there, what, 5 seasons?
yeah.
Yeah, to now on her own property. You can go back and on Diego's podcast, Carrot Cash Flow, you did an episode, I think that was March.
I
Um,
did one, yeah, this year, and
yeah,
I did one on the rented property,
mhm.
like 2 years ago, and then I did one, on the new property as kind of like an update, so, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that one that you did this year was you guys really were able to sort of get into the weeds on that transition from that.
Yep.
So, go back and listen to that. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say it's required listening, but I think it'll give a lot of color
It
and
is
dimension
helpful, yeah.
to what we're gonna talk about today. But with that being said, now sort of a year into being
Mhm.
on your new property, can you kinda just like how did it go? What were some of the, did things go the way you planned? Were there absolute utter disasters?
Oh
How did
gosh.
it all go?
Yeah, once I got through building all the infrastructure and kinda, like, putting my roots down here, things flowed really well. In that previous podcast that I did with Diego, I think I was in the midst of a huge irrigation problem-solving issue because I went through all these iterations of trying to figure out how I was gonna utilize water on the property. Once I got through all of that and built the infrastructure for that, and started planting, things went really well. I had a great season. It was a little modified in that I didn't start planting on this property until mid May, and that's like 2 months later than I would normally. start planting for a season. So it's a little modified, a little shorter. But as far as like the logistics and the growing, things went, I think, really well for my first year. I did have some growing pains. I brought in leaf compost and covered the entire farm. So I actually do like a deep mulch system of growing. And it was my first year planting into leaf compost. And I had some issues with that I think are resolving over time as the compost is breaking down more.
Mhm.
So that did actually affect, like, my production numbers. My germination rates weren't as good, and, yeah, I had some things that just didn't produce as well as the compost was, still in kind of like an early stage. And so, as the season went on, those issues were resolving, and I think my 2nd year in the compost will be even better.
So you're planting into, like, I mean, it's compost, so we're not talking it's just like, bags of leaves that you're just dumping straight on the
Right.
bread. It's been broken down. It's started that
Yeah.
composting process has started.
Yeah, but, when it gets delivered, at least from the company that I purchased from, I did not create all of my own leaf compost because I had, like, 100 cubic yards or something
Oh,
delivered.
wow.
Massive, and I spread it all, with volunteers. We spread it on the entire farm. It was a multi
God
it was
bless
a it
volunteers.
was a huge process. And, but so when the compost came, still was a little leafy in a way.
Mhm.
I was concerned about germination rates, about, like, nitrogen being tied up and things like that, and I did have some issues, but I saw with my own eyes and felt in the changes that were happening with the compost throughout the season, so I'm pretty confident for next year.
Awesome. Yeah, I think soil health, whether you're kind of more traditional, you're just amending with fertilizer or you're kind of going that deep compost mulch, but,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like an ongoing
Yeah.
battle. Like there's never, unfortunately, it's not one of those things where you just sort of like, all right, we've got it done and
No, no.
we can just go from here and like, set it and forget it. Like it's this
Yeah.
constant churn of, I mean, literally like in the soil, it's this constant churn
Yeah.
of nutrients and,
Yep.
making things available. And I think another interesting thing is that you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you increased your actual like square footage of growing space, right? I think you went from a quarter of an acre to a third of an acre.
Yeah. It's hard for me to say the exact numbers because I was saying my previous rented lot was an eighth of an acre, but I think that that was just the bed spaces.
Okay, so
So,
that's like
like,
literally just the square footage that
literally
have
just
plants
that,
on.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, it was probably more like a quarter acre. I think most farmers are actually measuring the entire area, including pathways and all that. So, about maybe a quarter acre, and now I'm at about a third of an acre. So, yeah, jumped up a little bit, in size, yep. Like, I don't really want to grow more than like, that was my ultimate, like, size, and a third of an acre is enough for me, and I think if I went in much larger, I would have to start maybe hiring employees, which is something that I don't want to do.
Yeah, and, bravo to you for knowing your limits. I think some of that just comes with experience
Yeah,
and knowing where your limits are, because
yeah,
that's such a temptation.
yeah.
I mean, for me, wrapping up our 2nd season, but also, for anybody, like, you wanna get bigger, you wanna grow more, it's like, if you got the space, let's fill every
Right,
possible square inch of it is, and
right,
so,
right.
knowing where like, "All right, maybe I could get to, half an acre, but that's gonna be a piss poor half acre that's not managed well
Right,
because
right, right.
things are kind of getting out of hand." You
Yeah.
can only cultivate and weed so much.
I know. I would much rather continue on the space and making it more efficient every year. Like, I proved to myself my first 5 seasons on the same space, I increased my revenue 20% each year.
Awesome.
So that was with just, like, efficiency and learning and dialing things in and whatever, and so, like, I was able to prove to myself, I don't need a bigger space. I need to dial these things in, you know?
Now, were you able to, you may have already alluded to this answer, but were you able to kind of stick with that 20% increase, or did you sort of
Oh,
have a decrease or kind of stay static where
yeah.
you were last year?
So this season, good question. I literally just did my numbers, like, yesterday. I was like, "I wonder, like, how I did this season." And I knew that my numbers were gonna be down quite a bit, mainly because I started planting 2 months later, so I
Mhm,
didn't even really have a spring part of my season. And then secondly, like, yeah, my numbers were really down on quantities, a lot with, direct seeded crops. Those were the ones, like, in the beginning, the germination rates in the leaf compost was not good
mhm.
at all, and, my numbers were way down, and I was telling my restaurants and people, like, "I just don't have enough." So I knew that I was gonna come in lower this year. So, just bringing in any money at all this year was like a success because I basically took a backyard and turned it into a farm in less than a season. Like, I didn't miss a season. I was starting to prep that land and everything while I was working on closing out my other season on the other farm and starting to get this going. It was, like, just a lot of juggling, and so I did pretty good overall, actually. Yeah.
Was this just, like, kind of sod, pasture, was is that I
Yeah.
mean, was that what you were essentially working with?
Yeah, it was just someone's backyard basically with some trees in it and, like, a little garden that they had in there. Years and years ago, they had cattle and horses back there, and so we were finding, like, horseshoes and metal and things,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there was, like, an old structure that was just, like, just some wood left, so it was kinda like we were seeing the remnants of things, but, yeah, I mean, it was just kind of like a yard, and we had to have a few trees taken down. I did do a one-time till, so a friend with a tractor came in and tilled, and then, basically just started spreading compost after that.
Yeah, I think so many times, if you don't have the experience that, the thought of like, "Oh, yeah, like, we'll just break ground, we'll till it
Yeah,
up, maybe we'll amend soil," then it's like you're off to the races. And I still don't even have the full comprehension of exactly how it all works. I'm not an agronomist,
yeah.
th but there's just things that just have to take time. There's just this natural process of that soil becoming more nutrient rich, more, better aggregate that, those plants need. And I think that is the one benefit,
Mhm.
is, if you've been somewhere for a long time, like for
Mm.
instance, the last farmer I was at, he's been farming that land since 93. And
Wow,
so, so he's got 32 years,
wow.
of production. And,
Yeah.
obviously it's expanded over time, but, it's like you kind of, not to say that you can't still improve, but
Yeah,
it's like it's sort of like the soil you have is the soil you have,
yeah,
and so but starting out, whether it's a new property or just a brand new farm to begin with, it does give you a lot of room to improve and a lot of room to grow, and I think the capacity to make the soil better in those first few years, is exponential compared to, yeah, if you were working that land for a decade.
right, right, totally. Yeah, I mean, I'm somewhat bypassing the soil in a way because I'm planting into 6 inches of leaf
Oh, yeah, that's
compost.
true.
A lot of the crops that I grow are shallow roots, like lettuce and radishes and turnips and things like that, and so, like, the soil's there, but a lot of my crops, I'm just bypassing it. It's an interesting way to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's probably, if anybody's listened to any sort of like market gardening stuff, this may sort of have question may already be answered, but is there a particular reason why you've just sort
Mm,
of zeroed in on those like super high profitability, really fast turnover crops instead of,
mm.
expanding into more, longer season stuff?
Yeah. I mean, really just the size factor is the main reason, on a small scale, if I'm cutting salad greens and pulling radishes out quickly and things like I can make enough money for a living wage. If I got into potatoes and,
Oh yeah.
broccoli and these things, like I just don't have enough space and my goal is never has never been to have a big farm. It's to
Mhm.
have a small farm where I can see every bed. This is kinda my thing is, like, I wanna see every bed from one shot.
Yeah, yeah,
So if I'm
absolutely.
gonna do that, I can't grow pumpkins and things that aren't gonna make me any money because they just sit in the ground for a long time, you know? So I would say, like, 80% of what I grow is, like, those high value, quick turnover crops. But now that I have a little bit more land, I am playing with some other things that I've always wanted to grow, like, I'm getting ready to put my garlic in for the first time. I have a little area in my plot that I'm gonna integrate some fig trees into. I grew flowers for the first time this year. The winter greens, like, that's a whole new thing for me because I have the tunnel. So I am, like, really expanding my I don't know, it's kind of exciting, like, "Oh, I'm growing all these new things," but my bread and butter is still the high value crops. And so just having a little bit more space is giving me, like, this exciting kind of like, "Okay, I can keep doing this thing that really works for me and people love it and it makes me cash, but there are other things I do wanna grow," you know? And so that the extra space is allowing me those kind of exciting things. Like, this year, I grew sweet potatoes for the first time.
Oh,
It's
wow.
fun.
Yeah, you went to, like, one of, like, the hard like, the hardest things as far as, like, harvest
I know.
post-harvest things goes.
Well, it was kind of an experiment, and I only took 1 small bed. I took a 20 f I have an area inside my farm plot that I call, like, experimental, and so I made these 25-foot beds, and I'm like, it's extra space beyond my kinda normal space, and I'm like, "Let's just grow some fun things and experiment over here." So I use it for, like, new salad greens that I've never grown before. It's like, "Oh, what's this one do? Let's just do 25 feet of it. If I like it, I'll put it into my, larger bed rotations. If I don't, done." You know? So this year, I took one of the 25-foot beds, and I planted sweet potato slips in there. Well, lo and behold, I got 200. It was an amazing amount of sweet potatoes. It blew my
Off
mind.
of a
They
25-foot bed, you
they
yielded
were
200 pounds?
crazy.
That's
They were
amazing.
growing underneath other beds and all wild, and, like, I was like, "What is going on?" So, it was successful, and it was really fun, and it only took up 25 feet of space on the farm. So, just these extra little spaces get me excited.
Yeah. How was harvest?
It was, like, one of the most fun days of my life.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like
Went out.
especially I mean, root crops in general, just because you kinda don't know. I mean, you can see the top of a carrot and it kinda
Yeah,
gives you an idea,
yeah.
but it's like, "Oh, man, this one's huge," and you pull it up and it's, like, all mangled and weird, or you're like, "This one isn't gonna be big," and you're like, "Oh my god, this is almost a foot long." But
Like,
yet
it
but
was
sweet
so fun.
potatoes are one of those ones where you're like, it's kind of a mystery. We're gonna pull
Oh,
back all these
it's a
vines, and we're gonna see what we have.
I know, and that was fun for me because, like, most of the things I do are very, like, cut greens, pull radishes, like, they're all you can see them, but the sweet potatoes, I mean, I was covered in dirt from head to toe because I dug them out with by my hands, and
Nice,
I
yeah.
was down on my hands and knees. I didn't use any tools, and I was, like, digging and digging and digging, and it was very exciting. So I think sweet potatoes are now in my mix.
Awesome. Are you gonna stick with that 25-foot bed, or are you gonna expand?
Ah, I think I might go 50 this time.
Okay. That sounds good.
'Cause I was able to sell them in one night, like, I took them to
Wow.
my yeah, I took them to my so people that order from me online, I drive all their orders in this cute little farm truck to this one spot, and they line up and get their orders. So I just brought, like, 100 pounds of sweet potatoes with me, and every single person's buying sweet potatoes, so they're gone in, like, 20 minutes, and I was like, "Wow." I kept half of them for myself, so we've been eating sweet potatoes, like, every meal. But I'm like, "Sure, why not?" I mean, I feel like they were worth it, and I was able to charge a good amount for them, so
Do you mind telling me what you were charging
yeah.
per pound?
I did $4 a pound.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we do. That
Yeah.
sounds it's
Cool,
it
cool.
it might be on the higher end, but I definitely feel like for the labor and the fact
Yeah,
that, you have to cure them and all that, that's like I feel like it's definitely worth it for a
I
good
do
sweet
too,
potato.
yeah. I grew some purple Japanese sweet potatoes as well, and people got really excited about those, so it's
Okay,
just
let me I wanna this is turning into a sweet potato podcast totally unintentionally, But,
Like my favorite food.
I know. So I'm curious now that since you've grown, I'm assuming you just did like a standard orange,
Yeah,
sweet
I think
potato and then the Japanese ones?
yeah, yeah. I
How
I grew 2 orange varieties and 1 purple one, yeah.
how do you feel like and when you say like the purple ones, like the purple skin and like the whitish cream inside?
No, no, like
Oh,
the
okay.
2, like, I think they're Japanese variety,
Like
sweet
the
potato
purple flesh.
purple. Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was wondering because I've grown, the ones that are like that kind of like maroon, purplish skin, and they're like white and creamy on the
Oh, I
inside.
know what you're talking about, yeah,
Yeah,
not those, yeah.
gotcha. And
Mhm.
and I love those so much, but I think we're done doing them because the yield is like half for some
Yeah,
reason. I don't know
yeah,
why. What about them? They just don't quite yield the same. They're
yes,
gorgeous and also I think they're a little starchier and less sweet. And
yes.
so people are like last year we were super excited about it and I had a lady buy like 10 pounds. She didn't tell me that it's like, I'm gonna make sweet potato casserole with these for Thanksgiving.
Oh,
And she was
yeah,
sorely disappointed. I was like,
he
"I'm
was
so
like
sorry. If you would've told me, I would've been like, no, like, you don't need to buy those.
yeah,
Like, that's
yeah.
not what these are intended for."
Right.
But,
The purple ones are also, like so they didn't yield as much,
mhm,
and they're not as sweet. I know, like, the nutrient value on them is super high.
yeah.
Um, the Okinawan, like, the Japanese, like, they really focus on these for their nutrients, but, yeah, they are drier, and so, yeah, they're a little drier, a little starchier, but so we'll usually mix them with some orange ones when we cook them, but they're great. Yeah.
So when you're adding, a longer season
Mhm.
crop, or maybe if it's even not necessarily longer season or much longer, but maybe it's like a, one and done, that's if it was like
Yeah.
a really quick mini head broccoli or something, where, you're not gonna get multiple cuts or
Mhm.
whatever. How are you sort of evaluating,
Yeah.
what makes the cut and what doesn't, compared to Salanova lettuce or salad radish or
Yeah.
whatever?
I don't know, I think it's the 80-20 rule, like 80% high value crops that are, gonna sell well and, like, are popular, and then for me, it's 20% like, what do I love to eat? So, that's what I've been doing, like, I actually did grow some mini broccoli, you mentioned that, because I like it.
Mhm.
And sweet potatoes, I like it, and garlic and figs and, things that are gonna sit in the ground longer, like, I think it has to be a crop that the farmer really likes, and yeah, I mean, I wouldn't grow anything that, like, people couldn't how do I say that? Like, garlic, everyone uses garlic almost
Yeah.
every day, right? So, like, you're not gonna be like, "Oh, no, how am I gonna sell this garlic?" Yeah, I don't have, like, a particular way of evaluating, it's just, like, crops that excite me because I wanna love what I do. Flowers, sweet potatoes, figs, like, things that I want in my life, are also what I wanna grow.
So we're not gonna be seeing a 50-foot bed of rutabaga anytime soon?
I
Alright.
do love rutabaga, but no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, and on the broccoli thing, I know I swore it's like it takes too long, you get one cut, maybe you get a little bit of side shoot production, but it just takes up so much space, and then, it's, a big shout out to, the seed company reps. Actually, I have a phone call with the Johnny's rep tomorrow to just kind of talk about some new varieties, and, it was turned on to, yeah, some of these, like, mini sprouting broccolis,
Yeah.
and we've I mean, we're able to do, 2 we kinda do offset, but, we're doing, like, 2 rows 18 inches apart on a 30-inch bed,
Yep.
and, and we're harvesting side shoots for, in a lot of cases, like 2, sometimes even 3 months, and so and I mean, I sell out usually within the first hour of our market every week. Like, I
Right.
can't grow enough to satisfy the desire for it. So it's like there's no real I mean, maybe there are some calculations of sort of, yield per bed foot or, some people talk about like, what is this bed paying me back in rent, so on and so forth.
Right,
But,
right.
it's like if your market, if nobody's growing that and you know that like you can sell as much as you can possibly bring, and it's like, yeah, we'll do 100 feet of it and
Exactly,
we'll
yeah.
do that.
If you know you can sell it, you're not relying like, when I do these other things, I'm not, like, relying on the money from them, it's, like, experimental kinda
Mm,
thing, then I try it out. We should talk baby broccoli because I tried to grow it this year, and it's kinda like it went a lot slower than I thought it would, so I thought I'd be harvesting it, this one particular variety, like 40 days, and it was forever long, and I made the mistake of putting it in my high tunnel, and so it got too hot in there
mm,
too quick. The plants just got huge, and they were just all over the place, and I got, like, minimal yield, and then the cabbage leapers got it, they got under the nets, and they tore it up. So I definitely didn't make much money on it, and it took up a lot of space.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's never gonna compete with, a French breakfast radish, but yeah, I think if it's done right, it can,
Yeah,
and we charge good, we're getting the equivalent of like $8 a pound, which I think for stuff is,
yeah,
I mean, I think that's pretty good. And if you sell out in an hour, like,
yeah,
yeah. And people get so excited. Like, I never wanna underestimate just, like, the sheer excitement. Like, people start asking about it, so
yeah,
I think we stopped selling it in June this year,
okay.
and, and we just started it back 3 weeks ago, and
Uh-huh.
literally from, like, the moment it stopped, people were like, "When is it coming back? When is it
Yeah,
coming back?" Are
okay,
and so it's like we just have such a huge demand for it that it's
yeah.
like, I think there would be a revolt if I just said like, "No, it's not profitable enough, we're not gonna grow it." So, everyone really
What
loves it.
variety do you like? What
So,
variety?
there's a couple that we grow. Sort of the gold standard, I guess, for, like, the super fast, one is BC 1611 from
Okay,
Johnny's, and so,
yeah,
yeah, that one's supposed to be, like, 45 days, produces, like, a really tiny first head, so small that really you kinda have to bunch, like, 2 or 3 of them together to get,
yeah.
a substantial amount to put on the table,
Oh, sure.
and then, yeah, and then it just throws out side shoots for forever, and
Okay.
it's takes up no space, but there's a couple other ones we can talk about that offline so we don't
Yeah,
just
sure.
it just doesn't just turn into, like, us talking about, like, 3 crops the
Yeah.
whole episode. But, I mean, just so overall, like, I mean, are you pleased with this season? Are there I mean, other than the compost mulch, do you think there's things that you could have done differently looking back on your season? And like, "Oh, if we would've,"
Mm,
if we would've maybe turned in that compost this year, or if we would've, focused more on transplanting instead of direct seeding,
mm,
obviously hindsight's always 2020, but,
right, right.
are there things you wish you would have done a little bit different after this first year?
Not really, honestly. I pretty
Just growing pains?
yeah, just, like, mainly the leaf compost thing, and then my water was an issue in the beginning, but I kinda got that all straightened out, and after that, I mean, it really pretty much just ran with, like, the crop plans that I was already using. So I didn't try to reinvent the wheel, and so I just utilized previous crop plans and kind of fitted into my space, and then did some experimenting, like I said, and so it wasn't like although it was new, it wasn't like everything was new, you know? I had actually thought about, like, expanding and, selling to restaurants on the Illinois side because we live in Illinois now, and St. Louis is in Missouri, and so my whole market is in St. Louis, and I was like, "Oh, well, I'll just expand into the Illinois side and pick up some new restaurants, maybe have a new pickup location for my online orders in Illinois and try to add on." But it became clear very quickly that my, production numbers were down, like I mentioned earlier, and I didn't have enough food to do that. So it was
Mhm.
like, "Okay, you know what? I don't need to change any of that right now anyways. I need to get, like, settled on this land, keep doing what I'm doing in St. Louis," and that all went really smooth. So we'll see about next year. If I can get my numbers up, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely, and how's the pond working out?
Oh, the
Speaking of
pond.
water.
Yeah. So the pond, we had a pond put in last fall, um, actually November, December last year, so it's been about a year. It's about a third acre pond, and, well, it's still having a hard time holding water. So we probably only have maybe 4 feet of water in it, And just to let everyone know, we put this pond in because I was trying to capture my own water to irrigate the farm. It became clear very quickly that the pond wasn't going to hold water right away. So I built an entirely different irrigation system, kind of as a temporary, but that might not be so temporary because the pond is still, kind of struggling to hold water. So I think eventually it'll get there, and whether I use it for irrigation or not, I'm not too sure. We have a lot of wildlife here, so we'll see ducks and deer and things playing over there and swimming. And so, it might just be a water feature for us.
Yeah. I'm curious because how far of a drive? Like, what was your commute at the old
Yeah.
place
Yeah. It
from
was,
like where you I guess because you moved to the farm in what 24?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so either from your current house to the new farm to the old farm
Uh-huh.
or from your old place to the old farm. Like, what was your
Yeah.
sort of typical commute like previously?
Yep. So previously, when I lived in St. Louis and farmed in St. Louis, my commute was 25 to 30 minutes on an interstate, like a really
Mm,
crazy one.
yeah.
And then when we moved to Illinois and I was still farming in St. Louis, I was finishing out the season,
Mm,
my commute was 30 to 35 minutes on an interstate. Yeah, so that was a whole thing.
yeah.
But I
And
was
now your commute
yeah.
is
Is
30
a,
seconds, maybe? Not
uh,
even?
3-minute walk, let's say,
Yeah,
that
okay, yeah,
from the door to the farm, 2-minute walk, yeah,
yeah. And, how have things sort of changed, whether it's in, like, conceptually the way you think about working on the farm,
yeah.
or even just, like, just quality of life now that, like, you're there on the property at all times, like, in both good and bad? Because I know personally from commuting to the farm and then we moved here, a lot changed and not always necessarily for the better.
I would say most of mine are all for the better.
Awesome.
Uh,
Good.
yeah, I lived in the city of St. Louis for 25 years, and I was really ready
Mhm.
to a more peaceful living situation, and so that's what we got, and I love it. It's been absolutely amazing. It's like my dream. It's like we're, like, living a homestead kind of life now instead of just me driving to work at a farm. It's like, "Oh, we live here, our passion is here, we're creating this, like, more holistic kind of vision of life is like, growing in the wildlife and the trees and the nature and like in our homes right in the middle of it. And so for me, it's been mostly all beneficial. I would say some key points are that I've gained a lot of time back for my life, just that drive time. Not only the drive time, like which was an hour, if you add both ways, but it's packing your lunch and packing your bags if you have something to do after work. And like it just was a whole like getting ready to go farm, whereas now it's just like, just go.
Mhm.
Um, Another great thing is just, like, being able to utilize times of the day more appropriately. So, like, say I wanna spray beneficial nematodes on some beds or something. Well, I wanna do that early in the morning or late at night, and right now I can just do that. Before it was like, "Oh, I gotta get there, drive there, get there 2 hours before I would normally get there." It's just, like, the timing of everything is just, like, so much more, like, on my time, which has been great. And then we talked about the community piece a little bit, like, I really loved having community on that farm school property, but it's okay because I have volunteers and, I'm still, like, really close with all the farmers on that previous property, and I'll go there and visit them, and sometimes they come visit me, and so we're still very much in contact, yeah.
Yeah.
Any downsides I would say is, like, well, I mean, it's more expensive to own my own property and my
Yeah. Yeah.
infrastructure and all the money that I saved and spent to do this. It's, instead of just paying, like, a rental fee for the property, now it's, paying for all the utilities and
Mhm.
build out that I did and that, but, like, that just I don't know, it's not a downside, it's just the facts, the reality, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel that there's like out of sight, out of mind is not the way to put it, but it's like, do you feel that, I know for me speaking, it was like when I came to the end of my day, whether it was like I have to go home,
Yeah.
it's dark, I can't work any longer, or just the constraints of having to commute. We were driving 45 minutes to get to our property.
Mhm.
There was something about that, just like hard stop of like I have to leave and I can't just like turn around and come back in 15 minutes that sort of gave me these parameters, both in like the hours that I could work, but then also in just like what I could care about, like if we're gonna have a hard freeze or whatever, it's like I'm gonna cover everything and then
Mhm.
I'm just gonna have to just trust that everything stays covered. Where now, yeah, I'm about a 3-minute walk through the woods to get to the farm property. And
Mhm.
it's like, not as much this year, but I know last year especially, it was just like, I'm laying in bed and it's 2 AM and there's like a insane storm whipping through,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I can't sleep. I'm wondering if we still have plastic on our tunnel. It's like, all right, well, I'm not gonna sleep, so let's just like suit up and walk over there and just like, get our flashlight and just see like, all right, everything's still there. All right, I can go home and sleep fine. Like, has there been any of that where it's like maybe you're thinking about it because it's sort of just outside the window per se, or does that just sort of come with experience and wisdom and like trusting your processes and trusting, the
Yeah.
things that you put in
Yeah.
place?
Yeah, I would say there hasn't been a lot of, "Oh, no, I gotta go," whatever. Like, I really do just trust it, and I think, like, well, if something happens, like, it happens, you
Yeah.
know? There is one example, though, where I could relate to you. So, with the irrigation system, we have a 2,500-gallon tank where we're catching water, and it's not all completely dialed in yet, but, like, sometimes I'm concerned about the water overflowing out of the tank, and so I have been known at 2 in the morning to, in a hard rain, to go out, with a flashlight
Yeah.
and figure things out in the dark in the rain, as things are flooding. Yeah, so, there's some of that. I would say most of it is just beneficial, though, like, being able to, like, if I really am concerned about something, I can go check it. I don't have to drive, and I don't have to lose sleep and
Mhm.
whatever. Um, for me, it's all been, like, good, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Couple things on sort of the transition, that we can get into more nuanced topics about just kind of growing in general. Because I mean, you're such a wealth of knowledge. I would hate to just sit here and just chit chat about, the new property. We gotta get everything out of this well that we
Yeah.
can while
Yeah.
I've got you. But I'm curious, kind of sort of two parts of the same question. How has it been growing and kind of maybe learning a bit of new management style with this new big tunnel, but
Yeah.
also just sort of winter growing season extension in general? Because like you're saying, I think what would you typically wrap up like, you know, end
Uh
of end of November, middle of November, you'd sort of wrap
Mid
up your
Yeah,
season?
mid-November, and I'd usually be like, "Okay, I'm done selling," and then, like, things would just keep growing because we have relatively warm winters here,
Mhm.
but I would usually wrap it up November, honestly, so that I could just take a break.
Yeah.
I know myself, and I, like, would want a few months off so that I could get excited to do it again, so that
Mhm.
I would usually cut it off then, but yeah, now I'm winter, growing in the tunnel, and, what's the question? I
Oh, I
didn't
guess it was kinda twofold. Like, one, just sort of how, like, what's your strategy? How is winter growing? Sort of, even though we're technically not in winter yet,
Yeah, I know.
but I mean,
Yeah.
it might as well be. It's that sort of in between cusp time, you know, so, like, I guess the first question is, like, yeah, what's your strategy kind
Uh-huh.
of going into this winter? Are you gonna stick with your normal markets? Does I mean, I guess, does your market even go year round?
Mhm.
Like, what's your sales strategy for that, and sort of crop management wise? Is it just
Yeah.
like we're going to do a bunch of winter hardy stuff and just pick it as we can, and what we have is what we have? Or are you really trying to push really hard with a lot more, like with those consistent, like high profitability crops that you
Yeah.
normally do?
Well, I chose just a few crops, so I'm doing spinach, kale, salad mix, which is a lot of Salanova and stuff,
Mhm.
and, Little Jim lettuces, and so I have 4 big beds in there, and I'm just focusing on that as my first winter, and it's been really great because I've been able to travel, some while I have that going. I have a volunteer that loves coming, and she comes and opens and closes and row covers and all this stuff
Wow,
and
yeah.
managed things for me, which has been great. What I've loved so far is that, like, because things are growing so slow, they're just sitting there, I'm not, like, so pressured, like, "Oh my god, I gotta cut this stuff and sell it. It's gonna get too big and whatever." So it's kinda been nice because I've just taken, like I was out of town last week and just didn't sell anything, you know? So I'm back this week, and tomorrow it's gonna warm up a little bit, so I'm gonna go out and harvest and, um so it's been a little bit more casual, I would say, for, farming. And as far as, like, who I'm selling to, my I don't go to a farmer's market. I have my own, like, online store,
Okay.
and so that's kinda my retail side of things, and all of those customers know that I'm growing this winter, and so they're kind of, like, on alert. So, they know, like, if I send out an email, I open up my online store, and it'll kind of explain, like, how it's gonna go that week. And then at my list of restaurants, like, they're still buying greens from me. So yeah, I'm kinda running with the same markets, the same avenues, and just, it's been working out so far.
That's really wonderful that you have, like, a committed customer base that's, like, willing to, like, roll with the punches, with the ebbs and
Yeah.
the flows of, like, "Hey, we have stuff this week." Like, we're
Yep.
probably not gonna have anything next week,
Right, right,
and so
right.
on and so forth.
Yeah,
Because, I know for me, that's some of the pressure. It's like, well,
yeah.
shoot, I already paid for to be here every Saturday at the farmer's market, and
Right.
so it's like, I better freaking show up because, if I don't show up, then people are might not that it's competition per se with the other growers, but it's like, I have people that consistently come to buy,
Yeah,
4 or 5 bags of arugula every single week, and it's like, I wanna make sure, 1, just for the consistent, revenue coming in, but also it's like, I care about these people, like, we've built a relationship, and, like, I wanna ensure that they can eat super nutrient dense healthy food,
yeah,
week in and week out, and so sometimes there's this pressure if it's like, I really shouldn't harvest that this week, like that kale is a little small, but it's like, I
yeah.
gotta have bunches of kale on the table,
Right.
so let's just, and then all that does is it just sets you back even more in the future.
Right, I know.
And so
Yeah,
it's awesome that you're able to sort of, kind of work through
yeah,
the unknowns of winter, and your customers are just sort of there when you need them
yeah.
to be.
They're kinda waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great.
But speaking of that, I'm from the conversations that you've had with Diego and from just looking online and so on and so forth. I'm like really blown away at the sense of community and, within your customer base, your volunteers, just kind of overall,
Yeah,
this like really tight knit group of supporters and
yeah,
cheerleaders that you've had, and it's really inspiring to see because, like I said, sometimes you can just see them as like customers, dollar signs.
right.
You look in Square after, the end of a market, and it's like
Yeah.
this many new customers, this many whatever, and you're like,
Right.
well, that was Dee Dee. Like you don't see that in
Yeah.
Square. Like she buys her arugula every single week, and so, but you can fall into that temptation of just seeing people as dollar signs or as numbers,
Yeah.
and it's like, did this just happen organically, or was this like a really intentional,
Mhm.
process that you went through to cultivate this community there?
Wow, that's such a great question. I mean, I could be really philosophical about that. I won't go too far down that.
Go for
But
it. We don't have to just talk business the whole
okay.
time. Go for
Yeah,
it.
I mean, my life is very centered around, like, relationships and caring and love and compassion, and, um, really, I think the key to health is connection.
Mhm.
And so, I've been known in the community to do other things before farming that kind of set me up to have, like, a really wide customer base. I have a chef texting me right now. Or just like it's an example of a relationship is like super close to all the chefs, all the customers. But so before I was farming, I was a yoga teacher. I did body work in St. Louis. I just had this thing where I would pull people together in community and was focusing on a lot of different like avenues of health. And so when I started farming, I had like an instant customer base just because of my reputation in the city and what I was known for. And so I just ran with that with the farming too. It's like I really do truly care about each person that comes to purchase from me. And so, like, if you were there, you'd see a long line of people, and every single person that gets their order from me out of my truck, I talk to them. I ask them about their life. We talk about something that they told me before. They ask me, like, it's truly a conversation. It's not just an exchange of food, it's an exchange of love, of care, of relationship, of connection. And those people keep coming back and they tell their friends too. And so it's very important for me. It gives me purpose. And, when farming gets really hard, it going there and having those people show up and truly, like, express their gratitude is, like, just gets you right through. So, it is important. It's kind of the, like, foundation of my business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think, um, I mean, I was super blessed to be able to like we were a part of like a real like intentional group of community, and I thought that was kind of going to be like the center of our business, and it just didn't end up that way. And
Yeah.
when we moved out to the farm, things sort of changed, but trying to cultivate that,
Yeah.
which it's something that I don't know if it gets talked about enough, but like moving out to a more rural area,
Yeah.
I mean, we're significantly farther outside of town,
Yeah.
but like, those things where it's like, oh, you don't see the person at the grocery store, you don't see him at church, or you don't see him at T-ball practice or whatever, like, you have to be even more intentional to,
Right.
cultivate those relationships. I mean, I'm just talking about generally in life, with
Totally.
friendships and
Yeah, yeah.
your kids having friends and so on and so forth, but yeah, but with the people that are making your business possible,
Yes.
it's like it's yes, it's my business. Yes, I'm the one doing, 99% of the work, but at the end of the day, it's like they are probably even more integral to that because if it wasn't for them, it's just me with a gigantic garden.
Yeah.
And obviously part of that is just in the practicality of, you have to have people to buy your produce in order to pay bills,
Yeah.
but also it's like, but like you said, it's that motivation to kind of keep you going. You have a rough week, you have a
Yeah.
crop failure, you're
Yeah.
just burned out that week. And it's like, but someone to just like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. You're
Yeah.
you're so nice." You're always so positive. Or, if it's like you have the best lettuce at the market,
Yeah.
those things are really that like sort of shot in the hip to keep you going.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's imperative to running a small business in general, but especially one that is so intimately involved in people's lives through the
Yeah.
things that they're putting into their body.
Yes.
Um, you have to have a sense of community and a sense of relationship with your customers to be successful.
Yes. Yes, and I suggest to other farmers, small businesses, like, be the one that reaches out. Like, for example, one of my customers confided in me that she's having a big surgery, and she told me the date. I, like, literally wrote it on my calendar right away, and I reached out to her the day before, like, just, like, these relationships are so important, especially if you're a small business, like, the more of those you can cultivate, like, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I mean, that's a perfect example of going like well above and beyond just being like having a nice bubbly personality and
Yeah.
remembering someone's name. I mean, we did not to toot my own horn, but I think it's just a great example for people to be able to learn from. But at our market, there's a significant number of people who, are buying produce with their EBT card. They're using SNAP dollars, and with all the stuff that we've dealt with this fall with all of that. Um, I one family in particular, they've got like 100 kids, and they care so deeply about their health in every sort of way. And like as soon as I knew that it was like that tap was getting turned off, like I immediately was like, "Hey man,
Oh, yeah.
um, like I know this is going on, blah, 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 blah. It's like, whatever you need, just tell me. Like, I've got you, and
Yeah,
it's like, I don't
yeah,
expect like you pay me back later, whatever. It's like, we've got more than enough food.
yeah,
This $50 worth of stuff that I'm going to give you is not like, it's not going to make or break us, and not even in the sense of like, oh, and look how good of a job I am of ensuring that I have a customer for life. It's like, no, it's like, I just
yeah,
care about these people, and
yeah,
I want these little kiddos to, you know, be able to have super nutrient dense food and not worry about the parents stressing. I mean,
yes,
if anybody that has kids, that worry, because it's so external. It's not about you, it's about them. And
yeah,
so, yeah, going above and beyond with,
yeah,
your customers and your friends with this amazing gift that we have of food.
food, right, right.
I think it's super imperative to make truly making an impact, and then hopefully that impact will benefit us in the sense of having like a successful, stable,
Yeah,
income.
for sure. What you give is what you receive,
Absolutely.
so it's a give and take, yeah.
Yeah, we got way more into the fields on this one than I thought. I love it. We
That's
can
more
go
my, like, style.
Yeah, we can go super deep and nerdy on broccoli and sweet potatoes,
Yeah.
and then we can just go right for the gut
Yeah,
punch.
the heart.
Um, and I think also too, just like the volunteer base that
Oh, yeah,
you've built is
yeah,
really inspiring,
yeah,
and also a little terrifying if I'm thinking about that, just because we've tried it in the past, and
yeah,
people are always like, "Oh, man," I have friends that's like, "Dude, we haven't hung out in 4 months." And it's like, "Just tell me when you want me to come over, I'll help at the farm." And I'm like,
yeah,
"Dude, I would much rather take a day off and go
yeah,
have a beer with you and hang
yeah,
out than I would you come and work for me at the farm." Like, that's gonna stress me out, it's gonna
yeah,
stress you out,
yeah,
and
yep,
it's like, I mean, having, like, really awesome volunteers, someone that can come and uncover and open and close greenhouses, like, has that just has a lot of that just been sort of setting the standard and expectation
yes.
from the get-go?
Yes, so much so. I'm vetting people through this process because I don't really like those one-off, like, "Oh, I wanna come and help for 2 hours this one time," or, "Let's catch up over I'll come over," like you just said, "and we'll catch
Mhm.
up." Like, "No, no, no, no." So,
Yeah.
we're working, and I don't wanna teach people the same thing over and over and over again. So, like, when I'm looking for people that wanna help, it's a certain person that wants to dedicate their time, they wanna learn, they, like, treat the farm like it's their farm, and, it's a, like, a longer I'm usually looking for people that wanna help for a season.
Hmm.
Now, the legality of that is, like, if you're for profit, you can't really have volunteers. That's a whole 'nother thing. We're actually working on becoming a nonprofit for many
Oh,
reasons,
okay.
but that's a whole 'nother thing. But, you know, I still take volunteers, and it's worked every single year, and I every year have a really consolidated group of people that want to help, and they love it, like, they learn so much, and they all become really good friends, and, like, we're in it together, you know? So, yeah, it's an important piece of my model, and there'll always be, like, 1 or 2 really standout people, like this one I told you about. I mean, I think she's, like, 65 and, like, she's retired and she loves to be outside and garden, and she wants to come, open
Mhm.
and close tunnel, like, make sure everything's okay. Like, there are those people out there. They're out there, you know? Yeah,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's been great. Yeah.
Yeah, I know there was a guy at the other farm I worked at, and it was kinda like, we saw a lot of volunteers come and go. They had, farm had a reputation for itself. People, it was just kind of a magnet for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And, this one guy, and you're like, I think we were transplanting cabbage, and on this farm, it's like, we're transplanting, 6 300-foot beds, and we're just down there on our hand, we're
Yeah.
transplanting by hand through plastic.
Ooh,
And,
wow.
and but for the crew, like, it's just kinda any other Tuesday, whatever, and he's out there with us, and you can tell he's struggling, and we're like, "Yeah," and we kinda look at each other like, "This guy's not gonna last."
Yeah.
But then fast forward 6 months, and he, like, became a part of the crew, and, he had a pretty good paying job, he traveled a lot, and then he found himself, like, living alone in a more rural area,
Mm,
and he was looking for that sense of community and
yeah.
wanting to learn how to take care of himself and grow food and all that sort of stuff. But it got so much to the point where it's like, I think he traveled for work and he like landed in Atlanta in on at like 6 a.m., and like the day started at 8. And he like jumped off the plane, got in his car, drove to Walmart and bought like work clothes so that he could
Wow.
have something to wear to show up. I mean, like boots, pants, shirt,
Yeah.
everything. Just because he was like, no, like, we're like, dude, like you don't like you can show up late or just not show up. Like, remember, you're not getting paid to do this. And he was like, no, like this is important to me. And it was just like,
Wow.
and I think that was the first experience of seeing someone who is not doing it for a paycheck. They just genuinely love the work.
Yeah.
And I mean, we get that. Like
I totally get
yeah,
it.
I get it. That's what, God knows I'm not necessarily doing it for a paycheck.
Right.
And so, but to find people who are just totally bought in and they treat it like it's their own farm
Yeah.
is, and so yeah, I think I if I wanted to add something like that, I think I just need to almost, I mean, what, treat it almost as like an interview application process, like you're hiring somebody.
Yeah, I usually have them come out, like, if someone reaches out, I'll just come have them come out on their own once,
Hmm.
and we'll kinda do some things together, and I'm kinda just checking out their energy and, like,
Yeah.
you can usually tell, you know? So, yeah, and then I'll start to get them into the process, and, I mean, there's been a couple times where, like, someone just kind of faded out because maybe it just wasn't a great fit, but usually I can tell during that first time, like, if this is a person that's really gonna, like, work. Like, one kinda red flag is people that when they work, they can't talk, and when they talk, they can't work. So,
Yep.
like, they'll be trying to work,
That's
and then
me. I
someone
can't,
says
I
something,
can't work
and
when
then
I
stop
talk.
for 20 minutes, and I'm like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
So, you have to be able to do both. Like, if you wanna be a talker, you gotta continue to work. If you know you can't do both at once, then just work.
Yeah.
Like,
Put in
you
your
know what I
headphones, listen
mean?
to something if you need,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
if you need to kinda isolate yourself and just put
Right,
your head down
right,
and make it happen.
yeah, so
Yeah. Well, to sort of change gears a little bit, you've talked previously about sort of the work that you've done with and sort of the inspiration and sort of knowledge that you've gotten from like Ben Hartman. And I mean, I think Ben is like the epitome of like a systems guy. Like
oh,
he's
yeah.
got it dialed in. And it sounds like you're kind of more that bent as well as
Mhm.
and maybe less of just kind of a loosey goosey feel it out. Like, what does this bed want? Like, what do you want, bed? Like, are we doing arugula? Are we doing salad radish.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's kind of the way I go. I need to get better at that. But with that being said,
Yep.
um, having systems that you're really working off of and and sort of like these real rigid structures that everything sort of falls into. How important do you feel like that is for like a new grower? Like whether it's someone who's like, I've got a piece of property, I want to start break ground and actually maybe do some stuff in 2026, or if it's me and it's like I'm in my first, second year and I'm just kind of figuring things out. I mean, do
Right.
you see this as more of like, yeah, you need to have structure and you can adapt the structure later? Or is it just sort of like, let's find what works for you and then build that structure around you as a farmer, you as a person?
I think it really depends on the situation, like, if you're needing to, like, grow a farm to, like, have an income,
Mhm.
you gotta come up with some systems pretty quick. It's not that you can't change those and keep getting more efficient and making better systems, but, like, if you're just loosey goosey everywhere, I'm not sure if the income's gonna come in. Um
We're not doing that bad, but we're super we're super loosey goosey. But no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
I could be much worse. I had 3 years under a guy who's been doing it since the year I was born. I had some
yeah.
systems sort of baked in through that time that I
Right,
don't
right,
even
right.
necessarily have written down per se. But yeah,
Yeah, I think if you're doing it for a farm income and it's like your salary,
yeah,
then you need to create some systems and you need to also probably project,
hmm
like, what you're gonna bring in per bed, per crop, whatever, to kinda just, like, have something. Now, if you're just, like, you're farming just for fun and your partner makes all the money or something, like, maybe that's a different situation where you can be like, "Do you want sweet potatoes or do you want turnips in this bed?" I don't know. But I think most people out there are farming as a profession.
yeah,
So in that situation, I think the quicker you can design systems, the better. And I highly recommend having a mentor and or somebody you're studying with, like whether it's Ben Hartman or, there are like these master classes out there. I did Ray Tyler's master class, Ben Hartman. I consider them mentors. And so you're going to naturally be picking up people's some of their systems or whether
hmm
you worked on a farm, like I worked on another farm, small scale farm, and I was picking up things from her, and you're kind of then integrating all that, I think, into your own process, but yeah, I'm a numbers person and, like, I like to do a lot of analysis, my degree's in statistics, so,
oh
like
yeah.
yeah, it's like
So spreadsheet's not a bad word for you.
I like numbers, I like systems, I like, you know, figuring things out, I like problem solving, and the idea of having processes put in place just, like, feels clean to me.
hmm
Like, I want a clean working space, I want a clean this is how you do this. Not like, there's gotta be wiggle room in all this stuff, like, we need to play and we need to be flexible because farming is not doesn't fit into a box, I mean, it
Yeah.
does not fit into a spreadsheet. So it's both, and I talked about this in some other podcasts, like, it's both, but you gotta have somewhere to start. And when it comes, like, to, like, lean farming with Ben Hartman, like, I think if you can start lean,
Yeah.
that is a great thing because you don't like, if you start with just the tools that you need, you start with, like, minimal, then if you need something else, you get it, but don't start buying all the things and doing all the things, like,
hmm
you gotta, like, weed it all out, Like, I think just streamlined farming, like, on a small scale to begin with is super it's good, it's efficient, and you can always add things if you need to.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about, bootstrapping an operation, not just from like a money saving standpoint, but just from a, you know, kind of learning processes and implementing processes that work that, you know, and then, yeah, I mean, keeping sort of this burden of like, oh my God, I've got this walk behind tractor that I have a payment for every single month. It's like
Yeah.
for a year and a half, we did bed flips with, a lawnmower, a rake, and a stir hoe
Totally.
and we finally upgraded, like, we have a small tractor with like a tiller, and so we can, like I can use the tiller as like a flail mower essentially, and then go back through and do like a light tilth, after we've broad forked and it's like the amount of time that saves is exponential, but I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for all of the time putting in to be like, all right, here's areas where I know that I can save some time and be a little bit more efficient. And there's some other areas where like I'm not willing to compromise. We're not going to go out and invest in a quick cuts greens harvester because like I need to be able to to see every handful of arugula that I cut
Mhm.
and look at it and be like, pull out a bad leaf, pull out a piece of
Yep,
chickweed or whatever to
yep.
make sure, like, if I'm charging $20 a pound for arugula at the market, like, it has to be the absolute best. And so, could it be faster? Could it be more efficient? Could I bring in more for the amount of time I'm working? Possibly, but it's just like for us, that's a system that we are going to stick with. Maybe once we get weed pressure, you know, more under control we can. But for the time being, it's like it's just a quality control thing that we have to do. And but if I dropped $800 on the greens harvester right out of the gate,
Yeah.
I probably would have just been like, well, this is how you do it. This is how the
Yeah.
successful guys do it, and we just need to roll through and do it. And then God knows how many hours I'd be spending picking stuff out of the salad spinner.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I hand cut everything. Yeah.
hmm And it's
Yep.
just, it's just, I don't know. I just like it better. I feel like you're a little bit more. You can actually pick just the leaf with the little stem as opposed to just like
Yeah.
I just hacked all
Just
those
hack it off.
lettuces in half.
I know, I'm right there with you. I don't do the greens harvester. I gotta see what I'm cutting, and, I'd rather put the good leaves in and not start picking them out later.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
one last kind of system thing on that. Do you recommend like finding someone who like you resonate with, their system seems to be working, like it just seems to be sort of your style per se,
Mm,
and like just try and like take their model
mm,
and pick it up and drop it on your property and do that? Or do you see it
mm.
more as like, let's collect as much wisdom and systems as we can and then sort of puzzle piece it together to make what fits? Because I feel like there is this temptation. And I just think in the world of like marketing and like you want to get people to come buy your course, your master class. And it's like they're I feel like sometimes they can be marketed as like, be successful like us, take our model, drop it onto your property and make it happen. And just from my experience, it's just, my land versus the guy 15 minutes down the road are completely different for 100 different reasons. And it may work for him and it may not work for me.
Right. I personally think we're all drawn to somebody. I never had to sit down and go like, "Who do I wanna study with?" It just, like,
Yeah.
obvious. I wanted to focus on lettuce, and I knew Ray Tyler was doing it, and I jumped right in. I wanna work on efficiency and, like, clean systems, and Ben Hartman does that. Like, so I think you just if you know yourself and you know, like, kind of what style of farming you wanna do, you the person is there, you know? Like, I think that we're all kinda connected to a specific type of farming energy, yeah, and
And
I
those
do
and those people pop up when you need them to be there too.
I totally agree, yeah. And I at the same time, it's kind of yeah, you're pulling pieces. I would never say, like, just study with this one person and then go farm. I mean, you gotta, like, read books, listen to podcasts, go to conferences, do workshops, work on farms, do a master class. I mean, really, like, there's a lot of information out there that's available, and I advise to get as much of it as you can and then start creating your own model, you know? Of course, you're gonna take, like, Ray Tyler, like, his system of growing lettuce anytime, anywhere. Like, I use it, but it's not the only thing that I do, and I don't do it exactly like him, but, like, yeah, I'm using a model, you know, but I also have all these other people that I've studied with or worked with, and so you're kind of yeah, you're creating your own thing, you know?
Yeah. And
Mhm.
speaking of lettuce, this is my one super selfish question. If anything, this was just all a ploy to get you on here so you can tell me how to successfully do like summer lettuce and greens production. Just for some context, obviously we've done it. I think our goal this year was to have lettuce at market every week of the year.
Yeah.
And I think we took a month and a half off in the middle of summer, which is like a big, maybe we'll say 2 months.
Okay.
Um, and some of that lettuce was like not the best, but it
Mm,
was, but we had it and it was great and people loved it. And
yeah.
nobody, there's like a, yeah, 2 month gap where like there's no greens at our market. And,
Mm,
um, it's like, let's say I can sell 30 bags this time of year. Like I could probably, we would take 25, 30 bags and sell out in 20 minutes. Like people are just, and so I'm like, I've got to get summer lettuce dialed in because it's there for the taking. And so like, I mean, and obviously I'm in a much more southern area. Our summers might be a little bit more intense, but like, what are sort of the tricks of the trade from your perspective on like really having not just consistent, but like high quality lettuce that you're pulling out of the field or the tunnel,
right.
in like the heat of summer.
Right. So are we just speaking lettuce and not greens in general, like lettuce?
Let's just stick with lettuce. Let's keep it
Okay, 'cause
simple.
it
Yeah.
could yeah. And are we speaking about transplanted lettuce or direct seeded lettuce or both?
I mean, whatever works best. I transplant everything, but that's mostly just so that we have, like, good consistent
Yeah.
stands and good spacing and airflow and all
Right,
that.
right, right. Okay, let's go with transplanted then, because that's also what I do in the summer. I transplant my lettuce. In the shoulder seasons, I do more direct seeding of lettuce, but in the summer, just because I'm not sure about the germination, I've done some experiments with direct seeding lettuce in the summer, and it's, mm,
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
So then I switched to transplanting. Um So here are 4 things that I learned, I think from Ray or maybe just but I don't know, from Ray and also on my own, is that you must have super healthy transplants.
Mm.
So none of these, like, flopping over things, like, yeah, they've gotta be thick and hearty and ready for to take all this stuff, you know? Um, a key another one is also, like, just the varieties, like, um, your varieties have to be dialed in because not every lettuce is gonna grow great in the summer.
Mhm.
And so I have, like, kind of a core ones that I'm always doing in the summer, and then each year I'm experimenting with a few, and it seems like I'm always going back to that core set because they do the best. Um, Shade cloth is an obvious one, like, so I'm using 30% shade. I know that some people use 50, but I'm generally using 30. I might pop it up to 50 if it's just, like, brutal,
Mhm.
um, outside, but I would not leave that 50. Some people even use 70, like, I wouldn't leave that stuff on very long. The
Just use it
plants
to take the edge off when it's really hard.
Yeah, it's really just to take the edge off, and I find that 30% is enough, even at 100 degrees. Just that edge just takes off that direct sun, and I leave it on, 7 to 14 days. It really depends on, like, the current weather state, but I try to keep it on as short as possible, you know?
And you're doing that, like, you said 7 to 14 days. Is that, like, 7 to 14 after transplant, or is that 7 to 14 leading up to harvest?
Sorry, at transplanting.
Gotcha.
Yep, so I'm just trying to, like, get those transplants just one more step ready before they're out in that full sun. And then the hydrocooling, the overhead water is very important. As you know, I switched to the Sumi soaker this year. I was doing wobblers. I like them both, but I definitely like the Sumi soaker a lot better. I like the droplet size,
Mhm.
and I like the coverage, much better on the Sumi soaker. So, it really depends on the weather, but once we're at 85 degrees and over, that's when I would be hydrocooling on a regular basis for lettuce. And that really like, how often and how much every day really depends on the sun and the heat and all that, but at the height of the summer, I would say I'm overhead cooling about 4 times a day, but only for, like, 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, just to get a little bit of moisture on
Exactly.
there just to
Yeah,
for that
yeah.
evaporative cooling.
Yep, exactly. Because you don't want all that we get a lot of humidity, so we don't want to just, like, wet all the time, so
Do you
so those
feel
are the main things.
Yeah, do you feel like or not bare soil, but, like, soil or, like, landscape fabric, do you think that plays a big difference when, like, just the
Yes.
quality of the cleanliness of the leaf and
So much so.
disease
Yes.
pressure?
I only plant into landscape fabric. I did experiments before where I would have landscape fabric and then I would plant some, like, just in the soil and compost. Those soil compost heads never did as good.
Mm,
Even the growth just wasn't as good. Um, so there's something to the fabric, and that's a whole science in and of itself. But do I like plastic? No.
yeah.
But I'm using the same landscape fabric for the 7th year. I'm not throwing it away. It's still fine. And yes, it keeps weed pressure down, but really what I think the key is that it keeps the soil cooler. And yeah, it doesn't you don't have all that splashing of things onto the leaves, and it just keeps it cleaner and it just grows better.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're mostly off to the right start. I need to try. I've got a few blank landscape fabrics that I need to put holes in, and I was gonna do my regular offset 18 inches to just do more like longer season stuff, but I think I'll dedicate a couple to. And are you doing well? You don't do 30-inch beds anymore, but I guess previously, are you doing like 4 or 3 on a 30-inch bed, like
Yeah, I
rows
was doing
wise?
for, like, cut salad, I would do
Mhm.
4. Mhm.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, maybe I'll give it a try. Maybe we'll burn some holes and do that. Because I
Do
mean, I
it.
think for anybody, it's such a good moneymaker in the summertime, especially if nobody else is doing it because they're like, "You're crazy, dude." Like, I even tell customers, like, "We're planning on having lettuce every week of the year," and they're like, "What?
They
Seriously?" I'm
will
like,
love yeah.
Yeah, and it's
I
so good."
personally think that I've dialed in my summer lettuce better than my, like, shoulder season lettuce. I've just gotten so used to, like, the process of it
Mm,
that then when we hit fall, I'm like, "Oh, wait a second. Okay, it grows slower, it doesn't need" like, and I'm always like, "Whoa," because I've just been really focused on summer and now really focused on winter, and all my winter lettuce is amazing. So I feel like I'm kind of like I mean, I'm really, like, kind of working towards, like, working, like, summer and winter and taking off,
oh.
like, fall. I don't know, I'm just kinda playing with these ideas, but
Yeah, that's interesting because that's like fall, like the shoulder seasons is like that's prime time for us. It's like, I mean, I would hate to take any time of the year off just because it's like I think about what I would be missing, but then my body's like, you should really take some time off. But
I know, it's like body, mind, spirit, it's
mhm,
like, I'm not sure about the four-season farming yet. I just wanted to try out the winter and see
yeah,
how it goes, and, I mean, it's definitely, like, a lot slower paced, but, like, you gotta be able to travel and just rest and things like that too, so
yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely there's. I mean, well, I mean, we will be this year. Our market. We take one Saturday off a year, and that's the Saturday after Christmas, and we're right back at it. And obviously, we're a new farm. I've got to pay bills, and so we're just and honestly, our winter market sales were our best sales of the whole year, just because there's a third as many farmers at the market, and so
Right.
and the customers don't drop off that much. Those customers are freaking, loyal. It's it'll be 29 degrees outside, and the rag is freezing in your back pocket, and you can only put one lettuce head out at a time so that it doesn't freeze, so they all don't freeze. And they're
Right.
lined up, bundled up, like ready to buy as much off your table as you can. So the
Mm.
temptation is there, but yeah, I know for longevity's sake, we'll probably start taking a little bit of time, maybe August-ish. That's usually kind of our slow August, September, is sort of our slow time. But um,
You know what's great about it is we can continue to play with the equation, like, don't get stuck in,
yeah,
like, "Have to do this," like, that's another reason you own your own small business is, like, you you call the shots, you know? So
awesome. Well, Jill, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
yeah.
I usually rattle off a bunch of rapid fire questions, but I think we've covered enough that, and I want to be respectful of your time. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been great to sort of listen and kind of watch what you're doing from afar. And I'm grateful that you reached out to me for tech support on the Sumi
Oh, yeah.
Soaker. That was,
Thank
that was a great little introduction that we
yeah,
had there. But yeah, I look forward to hopefully talking in the future, and I wish you the best of luck with your winter growing, and let's hope that pond holds some more water and 26 is even better than this year.
sure. Thank you so much. I love getting to know other farmers, and so now we're friends. Thank
Awesome. Thank you,
yeah,
Jill.
thank you.
All right, that's another amazing episode in the bag. Huge thank you to Jill for sitting down and talking with me. I always feel like with these episodes that just keep on going. I could go on forever, and at some point we have to cut it off. But I really enjoyed that one, and I look forward to be able to build a relationship, kind of a farm friendship with Jill in the future. And if you guys want to know more information about her, you can go to her website. or you can just search for Loving Roots Urban Farm. Check her out on Instagram. She posts a lot of stuff there. And I believe that she does coaching and farmer mentorship. So you can also go to her website and check all that out. That is lovingrootsurbanfarm.com to get all that information. If you were inspired by all the amazing wisdom that Jill dropped on us today, maybe you can work directly with her. So go check all that out and support her and however way you can, because the work that she's doing is super important, inspiring farmers, building community, and growing the best amazing food, feeding the city of St. Louis. As always, a huge thanks to Diego and the whole team over at Modern Grower for making this show possible. I know I gave him a big shout out at the beginning, but we'll do it here again. None of this would be possible without you guys. So thank you guys so much. And if you need cedars, transplanters, row cover, landscape fabric, drop cedars, quick hoops, all of the amazing things, microgreen trays. These are all tools that I use every single day on our farm, and they all come from moderngrower.co. So if you want a list of perfectly curated, expertly chosen, tried and true, trialed and tested farm equipment for small scale agriculture market gardeners just like you and I, then go over to shop.moderngrower.com, or you can see our affiliate link in the description and you can go pick up some amazing tools. You are indirectly and directly supporting the show by doing that. So thank you for that. And also, just a reminder that we believe in value for value. If you're getting value out of this show, if you're being inspired, if you're getting new perspectives, if you're learning new techniques, and if this is making you a better grower or inspiring you to become a grower for the very first time, please consider taking some of that value and kicking it back our way in the form of a donation. You can go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. You can search for Crop Culture Farm or at Crop Culture Farm and kick us a buck, kick us a couple of bucks. Every little bit helps, and it really makes this show possible. We can upgrade equipment, we can upgrade the Wi-Fi so that nothing's laggy and nothing's weird. Maybe it could even create a budget for us to go to people to do some on-site interviews in the future. That's all up to the amount that you guys are willing to donate to help this show possible. So thank you very much in advance. And if you do donate to the show, please throw a question or a comment in there, and I would be happy to read it at the beginning of the show. We can answer your questions. We can work out your problems together. So thank you all so much. And as always, I'm Alec Smith. I'm your host, and you have been listening to the Rookie Farmer Podcast. Until next time, blessings and peace.